Boy, that's cap. Boy, that's cap. That's cap. Boy, that's cap. Boy, that's cap. Boy, that's cap. How I'm gonna be there? Boy, that's cap. Boy, that's cap. How I'm gonna be there? How I'm gonna...
All right. Well, hello again to YouTube and Spotify and SoundCloud and wherever else this ends up being. I don't know. We're still figuring things out. Man, what's up? What's good? What's cracking? My name is Crackin Atkins. Welcome to the Crackin Atkins Podcast. The cap in all caps with no cap. Joining me today is nobody. This is episode 0. This is episode 0 of the podcast. It's just me this time around, but don't get used to this. This shouldn't be the norm around here. There should be some guests that we have joining us here from time to time. But this is a brand new thing. This is the Crackin Atkins Podcast. And this is just basically going to be my pilot episode. You know, I can do whatever I want with my first episode. It's my show, aptly named in the title. But for the pilot episode, episode 0, I just want to use this as an opportunity to kind of share a bit about like the show and what to expect. Use it as an opportunity to share a bit about myself, and hopefully this will like shape future episodes to come. But yeah, I thank you all for listening and watching if you're on YouTube. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have a good time around here. So the way that I want to start out the first episode is I'm gonna do a little bit of a activity. You might be familiar with this activity. You might have done it in elementary school. I'm calling it the 5 W's and an H. So this is an activity I remember doing in school. That is just like basically it is to help you with reading comprehension, and I guess also writing for like constructing paragraphs in a like cohesive manner, but also descriptive manner and everything like that. The 5 W's and an H. So we're talking the who, the what, the when, the where, the why. Those are the 5 W's, and then the H being the how. So what I want to do here for episode 0 is give the 5 W's and the H of the Crackin Atkins Podcast. I think that'll give a little bit of a scope of who I am and what's going to be going on around here. I mean, the 5 W's, right? The who, what, when, where, why, and how of what's actually going to be going on here. So hope y'all enjoy it. Hope it gives a little bit of context of what I'm aiming to do. And yeah, without further ado, we can just go ahead and get started. So of course, naturally, the first W is going to be the who. So I guess it's going to be on me to kind of autofill what these questions are rather than just saying who, because that's like a little general. But like, yeah, I guess the autofill question for the who part would be, who am I? Right? Who is this talking right now, right? Who is Crackin Atkins? Well, I guess I'm kind of answering the question in itself of who am I? This is Crackin Atkins. And with this who section, there's probably going to be the most self-indulgent or like transparent and like descriptive that I'll ever be about myself for the entirety of the show's run. You know, the show isn't going to be about like me necessarily, but mostly about like what I want to talk about. But I don't want to get too far ahead. That's going to be in the what section. But this who is going to be really personal, just kind of like sharing a little bit of my background and how I got into fighting games and everything. And yeah, I guess the initial part of that answer would be like I've been gaming or like playing fighting games as long as I can remember. Like definitely in the 90s. You're revealing a little bit about my age here, but some of my first games were fighting games, and I would just basically play everything that my brother played as a whole, even outside of fighting games. But yeah, we had like a Sega Genesis, a Nintendo Entertainment System, that is, but also a Nintendo 64. You know, going down in generations, we had a PlayStation 1, which eventually was a PlayStation 2 once that came out. But yeah, the games that we played the most, because we played a lot of games. I mean, on the Genesis we had like Virtua Fighter, but like not the Virtua Fighter that y'all know today, because we just had the new Virtua Fighter 5 come out, but like the 2D Virtua Fighter, because that's really a thing. Look it up. It's Virtua Fighter, but it's like a 2D game, and there's ring outs. Like if you corner your opponent, like usually cornering your opponent in a 2D fighting game is awful, because like, you know, you have no escape. But in Virtua Fighter, you can actually just lose. You get wrung out by getting cornered on the stage. It's nuts. But yeah, the main fighting games that we played was like Mortal Kombat and Tekken, because those are like my brother's favorite fighting games, and so naturally I was just playing whatever he played. Those naturally were like the fighting games I spent the most amount of time on as well. Specifically, if you're wondering, Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 3, Mortal Kombat 4 for the Nintendo 64, which has the best fighting game endings of all time. If you don't know, now you know. Look up Sub-Zero's endings, look up Scorpion's ending, look up Jarek's ending, look up Jack's ending. You know what it is. Look up Sonya ending. Quality stuff. Liu Kang, Tanya, I can go on and on. But yeah, the Mortal Kombat series, Tekken, Most notably Tekken 3, which Tekken 3 is just one of those games, man. Like if you've owned a PlayStation 1, I feel like if you owned a PlayStation 1 and you're in the fighting game community, I think like 99% of people that fit those two criteria had Tekken 3. Because like that game just like, as far as like how many copies it sold and like the impact that game had, I feel like everybody has had Tekken 3 if you had a PS1 and you're in FGC today. But anyways, those are the games we played the most. My brother would definitely beat me real bad. And I got real salty because like I just as a child, I was not really happy about taking L's. I always wanted to win. Very competitive nature, even from like as a kid. So I was like always trying to look for ways to win. Always trying to look for ways to beat my brother in the fighting games and everything. Eventually, my brother ended up leaving for the military, and so that left me alone. And you know, probably one of the best things about fighting games always, and like one of the main appeals and draw to fighting games, even for the FGC as it stands today, the fighting game community, is local multiplayer. Like we literally have a scene that's built around local multiplayer. 1v1, playing like in the same room, right side by side and everything. And that's something that has been heavily challenged over the past year or so with this pandemic and everything. But that's a whole nother topic in itself. But with my brother leaving and me not having any other siblings, that took like the core aspect of fighting games out of the perspective and just kind of left single player, which you would think that like with me just having single player to work with and no other siblings, I would like stop playing fighting games, not play fighting games as much. But no, I was kind of enamored with fighting games all around. And I mean, like with my brother being gone and like me growing older, it gave me a little bit of sense of independence where I could like kind of explore other fighting games, ones that I was able to find out about and kind of figure out what I like. Because Tekken, I knew that I really liked a lot, and I continued to like buy and play every Tekken, Tekken 4, Tekken 5, Tekken Tag Tournament. I love. That's one of my favorite games of all time. And yeah, like lots of Tekkens, but also allowed me to get into other series that my brother didn't have, or at least was playing in the arcades, but we didn't get the home version of, like Soul Calibur. I got like Soul Calibur 2, Soul Calibur 3. Played those, loved those a lot. I always loved Smash. We had a Nintendo 64, but like I don't think my brother was a huge fan of Smash, so we just never had Smash. But like once he left, I was able to get like Smash 64, Melee, stuff like that. It's a lot of freaking hours playing Smash Bros for sure. And Dead or Alive, another game that like, or another franchise that I got into, actually as a result of like, specifically it's Dead or Alive Ultimate, or Dead or Alive 2. I think it's called Dead or Alive Ultimate. And the reason I got into that is funny. It's because of like DirecTV had this thing that was called like, oh my God, what is the name of it? Oh, it's gonna bother me trying to remember the name of this thing. It was like a DirecTV gaming tournament or something. Basically the way that it worked, it was like a team of like gamers represented each other and challenged like another team of gamers. There was like specialists in like of certain types of franchises that like face off against each other. There was like, I want to say it was Project Gotham Racing, Counter-Strike, Dead or Alive Ultimate being one of them as well. And then like a couple of others. Or no, it was Dead or Alive 4. I want to say it was Dead or Alive 4 at the time, but I ended up playing Dead or Alive Ultimate. Anyway, that was like my exposure to DOA, was through watching that jank pre-esports like fighting game thing just on TV, because I watched like G4 a lot, but that was also another thing that was going on. I'm going off on a tangent, but I thought that was funny. If I can find and edit that into the YouTube video of what that DirecTV gaming challenge was, I'll definitely do that, because I had a blast from the past. But yeah, just kind of shaped myself as growing up of like what I liked. And then eventually Xbox 360 generation came around, right? The PS3, Xbox 360, Wii generation came around, which was huge for me because that was my introduction to online fighting games, right? So I explained how like through the lack of local multiplayer, I was just stuck on single player content, but that didn't stop me from playing fighting games. The introduction of online really got me into fighting games, right? So I was an Xbox 360 player, in the lens of Xbox Live. My Xbox 360 actually came with Soul Calibur 4. So I played that game a ton. Not only did I play that game a ton, I met a lot of close friends through Soul Calibur 4. Some that I like still talk to this day. So that was that was pretty cool. That was something at that time that I didn't think would ever be a thing, of like actually making friends through playing online fighting games, but it ended up totally being a thing. And so through the extension of Soul Calibur 4, that eventually led into titles such as like Tekken 6, Marvel 3, Street Fighter 4, and most interestingly, Blaze Blue. So there's a funny story about Blaze Blue. One of the closer friends that I met through Xbox Live Gaming, my friend Serpent to Prime. Shout out to Serpent to Prime if you're listening or watching. But when Blaze Blue Calamity Trigger was coming out, I remember he had asked me like, "Hey, are you interested in getting Blaze Blue?" And I'm like, "What's Blaze Blue?" I had like no idea what it was at all. And he was like, "It's this anime fighting game that's coming out by the same people that made Guilty Gear." And I was like, "What's Guilty Gear?" Like, I didn't know what either. I didn't know what Arc System Works was. I didn't know what Blaze Blue was, Guilty Gear was. I didn't know anything. And so like I ended up just buying it on a whim. And I ended up liking it quite a bit. It was just like, I explained this a bit in my Persona 4 Arena Ultimax video, if you watch that on YouTube, but like basically it was like a experience that wasn't really similar to any other fighting game that I was playing at that time. And it stuck with me. That had like a lasting impression, like playing Blaze Blue Calamity Trigger for hours on end, because I played that game a lot. But yeah, as you can see, like from just coming up, like I was never too picky about what fighting games that I got into, but the ones that stuck with me the most would most definitely be my roots of like Tekken. I played like a lot of freaking Tekken, man. Tekken 6, and then going to Tekken Tag 2, which is a little bit later down in the Xbox Live realm, because this is actually when I was starting to go to college. And so the main games that I was interested in was like I played Street Fighter 4, but I didn't really understand how to play Street Fighter per se. It was just a game I had in the rotation. Same thing with like Marvel 3. Like, you know, played a little bit of Marvel, but I didn't really understand how to play Marvel per se. I was more of a Tekken Tag 2. Like that was like my main game. And so going to college, I found out that they had a fighting game club. So I decided to eventually attend. I was a little bit nervous about attending as like a freshman and not really knowing anybody on campus, but I eventually went. And so when I showed up for the first day and I met people on that first day, they ended up again being friends to this day that I like still talk to, like really like one of my core group of friends for sure. They were like, "Hey man, what do you play?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I play Tekken Tag Tournament 2, Street Fighter Cross Tekken." And it was in this moment that I learned a valuable lesson about the FGC at that time. The response that I got to that was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, around here, you know, we play like Street Fighter 4 and Marvel 3. I was just like, dang. Like, I didn't like hate Street Fighter or Marvel, but like those just like weren't my games of interest. And through my introduction to that club and also just learning a little bit more about the FGC in general, because this is like when I knew about Evo and Wednesday Night Fights and stuff like that at that time, but I didn't watch it religiously. The first Evo I watched, I want to say was Evo 2013. I think it was Evo 20. I could tell you it was the one, that Infiltration one, and that had a really lasting impression on me, because that was like the one where he landed like 1 million raging demons in top 8 or something. I was losing my mind because I was just like, yo, this guy is insane. But yeah, that's when I learned that Capcom run shit. Like that, basically, for lack of better words. Like when it comes to like the fighting game community and it comes to, like, numbers and support and anything like that, and if you're just looking like place in games, like Capcom fighting games at that time, things have changed a lot, but like at that time, if you wanted to play like fighting games at a local level or like casual level or like tournament or anything like that, Capcom fighting games are always going to have the numbers. And so me trying to find Tekken players at that time in such a condensed type of thing, we're not talking like a local scene, we're talking about like a college scene on a campus being my local scene. It was hard. So basically I had to adapt. I had to adapt to my surroundings. I wanted to play local fighting games. I wanted to get to know my college fighting game community, but I had to learn their games. So I had the choice of learning either Street Fighter 4 or Marvel. I tried both. Learning Marvel for me was way too hard. Marvel 3, that is. It was just like, it was way too different from like the games that I was used to at the time, and like just trying to learn the core concepts. And people at my local scene were pretty good at Marvel 3. Like they already had like their ironed out like play style and everything, and then trying to teach me, especially since the characters I liked weren't characters that people in the scene were playing or maybe knew a lot about at the time, because like I liked weird picks. I liked Captain America, I liked Doctor Strange, I liked X-23. Like I liked like these weird characters, and like also like source material at that time wasn't as easily accessible as it is now. It was starting to become more accessible. You know, we had the YouTube, we had the YouTube. I said that's a real sentence, but like we had YouTube, we had like event hubs and like Shoryuken and like things like that to like look things up. But like if you're trying to like find an X-23 guide, or like find a Captain America guide, or like find footage of like a Captain America player, like the best X-23 player, it's just like it's not very easy to find. And if you were going to find something, you're maybe going to find like 2 or 3 videos, right? Everything was so shaped around like Doom and like Phoenix and like Magneto and stuff like that, or just your experience of grinding the game out and figuring out your own stuff and just like running that. And it's just like that was way too much for me to take in at the time. So naturally I drifted a little bit more towards Street Fighter. I played Street Fighter 4 for a very long time. And as I said, this was also a time where I was starting to learn a little bit more about the FGCs, like Evo and WNF and everything. And I followed a player by the name of Filipino Man who played Rose. And just watching the way that Filipino Man played, I was like, I want to do that. That looks cool. And so that's what kind of, because I messed around with a lot of Street Fighter 4 characters. I liked in the beginning, like I liked El Fuerte, I liked Zangief, and that was because growing up I was really into professional wrestling. That was also an extension of my brother. My brother loved like wrestling, so I tended to like wrestling characters to an extent, but I wasn't in my heart of hearts, I'm not a grappler player, so that was always like a divide. But I like Zangief, I like El Fuerte, I like T-Hawk, I like Sakura, I liked all these different characters, but nothing seemed to fit until I tried Rose. And then like that ended up, Street Fighter 4 Rose ended up being like one of my favorite characters of all time. So played Rose for a really long time, played with that group for a really long time. Like I said, to this day, that group that I met through my college campus club is still like one of still some of my closest friends to this day. Also learned about Persona 4 Arena Ultimax through that group. Which again, if you watch my Persona 4 Arena video, you kind of know like the upbringing of that and how my story with that game and how much I love that game. So I won't rehash that here. But yeah, I ended up going to my first Evo in 2014, 15. Crap, I don't know. I've been to a lot of Evos, man. But basically, I started going to tournaments. I want to say it was 2014. And just competing and learning. And then eventually I left college. And then like my kind of exposure to the community post college was I had a car by then, so I was going to a lot of Wednesday night fights, going to a lot of locals, not really playing a lot of majors outside of Evo, like a couple of SCRs here and there. But yeah, I think the main thing was like just kind of extending from my Xbox Live play into like now local play was like I was not afraid to try anything, but I was also not afraid to compete in anything. I've played in a ton of games over the years. Like I've played, of course, Street Fighter series, as I've mentioned. Marvel series, when Marvel Infinite came out, I played that for a bit. King of Fighters, I played a lot of King of Fighters 14. I wish I played more 13 because that's the one. But I was just getting into the FGC when 13 came out, and like again, like I said, Capcom ran everything, so like the KOF 13 scene wasn't super big, even though we did have some people that played it locally. Like that just wasn't the game that I tended to. But I played a good amount of 14. Played Smash Ultimate, Smash 4, NRS games. I don't know, I have a soft spot for NRS games because it's my childhood, dude. Like I said, Mortal Kombat and Tekken is what we played the most, is like growing up. So MKX, MK9, Injustice 1, Injustice 2, especially Injustice 2. I won't talk about my history with Injustice 2. It's a sore spot, but yeah, just constantly trying new things, which included Blaze Blue. I played like every Blaze Blue that came out because remember I said that it had a lasting impression on me. Persona 4, like I said, Persona 4, learned about that through college campus. Uni, because like through the core group that I met through college, I did have a couple of people that were really heavy into uni. I'm talking like Unio, like really early. I'm talking like Unio. No American release. You had to like have the JP copy, and they knew like the PS3 conversion with the JP account and all that. They were heavy on Unio. Like they went all in on Unio. It's like, this game looks interesting. And so like by proxy, I ended up trying it out a little bit. I never owned it because I didn't have a PS3 console, but I just kind of picked it up as we went. And then once Uni came out for PS4, of course I had it, but like messing around with Aurier, always like that game. And mentioning those 3 franchises to jump ahead to Evo 2016, 2017. Big Evo, because this was the Evo when BB Tag got announced. And yeah, just through my love for those franchises and anime games and everything, but never like really committing to an anime game. When BB Tag got announced, I was going nuts. I was going absolutely crazy. The story around this was like BB Tag got announced right after BlazBlue's Central Fiction Grand Finals ended and right before Tekken started. And like that was the time with the group that I went to Evo with that we decided to go to get some breakfast at the Mandalay Bay buffet. Man, I missed that buffet. French toast sticks, the omelet to be going crazy. But anyways, I was having an omelet made. Like the dude was making the omelet as this BB Tag trailer started playing. I didn't know it was BB Tag. Ragman and Jin's up there. I'm watching. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I wonder what's gonna happen. And then freaking Yu Narukami and Hyde pop in the scene. I start going nuts. I'm like, I'm like screaming, like I'm like, what is going on? I like run back to the table. I like show the phone. And I'm like, yo, y'all see this? I'm just going nuts. And so like I kind of calmed down a bit. The trailer seems to be ending. I go back to get my omelet, and then Ruby Rose pops on the screen, and I'm just like, like that is to this day one of my favorite like fighting game trailers ever, because like that was just so unexpected, so well executed, and like from that day forward, it had a super lasting impression. I was like, dude, I have to play this game. It's like characters started getting announced. Like from the franchises that were there, I knew immediately that I wanted to play Yang, because like I was into Ruby as well, a little bit. Like once BB Tag came out, that like really made me watch the franchise for sure. But even before the game got announced, I was like kind of cognizant of Ruby and like watch a couple seasons and everything. But Yang was like my second favorite Ruby character. Pyrrha is my favorite Ruby character. Yang was my second favorite. But I knew that like from when the game got announced, Yang had to be like part of the base roster, or at least I thought I knew, because that didn't even end up being the case. Yang was like week 1 DLC, but we don't talk about that. Anyways, I knew I wanted to play Yang. I knew I wanted to be really good with Yang, or at least try to be really good with Yang, even though like I knew Yang didn't really fit my playstyle per se. I play like a mid-range zony but canna press type of playstyle. That's tend to be like the type of characters that I like go towards. Like Yang is much more of like a in your face, brawling, command throw having, armor wielding, rush down type of character. It's a little bit counterproductive for what I like to do, but I figured it out because my team ended up being Yang Batista, and the way I played that team, one, I'm willing to say it was really bad. like the way I played that team, not the team as a construct, 'cause I think the team as a construct can actually be pretty good, but the way I played it was like not very good. But I made it work at the time because I would just like basically I was basically playing a zoning gang. Like I would control the screen with like air gun blast and Batista assists. And what made me threatening is that I actually picked up on how to use cross combo pretty fast. I don't want to say faster than everybody, but like I got pretty comfortable with it pretty quick. I just practiced it a lot. Like in the first like months of the game, so I had conversions on point to where like when it came to like the random gun blast or like hitting Batista 4P or hitting stuff like that, I was converting it into like real damage but like comparatively more damage than people I would face to where like cross combo in the first year of the game wasn't used by everyone, or at least not like by everyone that I was playing at the time. So that's what gave me a bit of an edge and allowed me to see a little bit of a success with the team despite me playing in such an unorthodox way. In the first Evo, which was 2018, I got 65th, which is pretty good. That was like my highest placing at like a major ever, and I was kind of hyped. I was also kind of salty, like because I felt like I could have placed higher, but it is what it is. I was okay with that. SoCal regionals that year, I ended up placing 9th, which was also again kind of hype, but I was a bit salty. I felt like I could have placed higher. And then like in locals that I went to, like Wednesday Night Fights, SoCal, Climax, Danger Time, lots of top 4s and top 8s. Never top 3, unfortunately, but good amount of top 4s and top 8s. So Yang Batista got me pretty far, and then the game was changing. Like every patch for BB Tag just felt like it changed everything so much. And so that brings me to like Combo Breaker 2019, where we had just gotten, I want to say 1.5 patch. This is the patch that came with Seth, Teddy, and Hart. I think it was those three characters. I know for sure it was Teddy and Hart. I think Seth was a part of that pack as well. But that patch dropped. I hated this. That patch dropped the same week as Combo Breaker, and Combo Breaker ran on that patch, which like was really tough for me because like I had to basically buy Switch Tag in order to lab the game, because the way that the patch is released on like PS4 was that it came out like after Combo Breaker ended or something. It didn't come out on time for me to practice the game before I actually headed to Chicago. But it was out on Switch, so I had to like buy Switch Tag. I did not have a converter. I had to like learn my B&Bs and everything on like a controller. And fortunately, Combo Breaker is OD because it's a 24-hour venue. It was open on Friday for BB Tag Casuals, and tournament didn't actually happen until Saturday. So thankfully, I got to play a lot of games and like try to get familiar with the team. Because it did actually change quite a bit. Batista got like new assists, that like changed up my B&Bs a lot. Like it was a lot to get used to. But like the other thing about Combo Breaker that really stuck with me was watching the top 8 live, and not even just watching top 8 live, just watching people play live. And I was like, people play different. In fact, people are really cheap. Like I remember watching like some of the people that had the biggest impression on me was like Diaphone, who was playing Blake Merkava at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and Base, who was playing the freaking Mitsuru Yuzu at the time. And I just remember watching those players, and I was just like, these players have like win conditions and mix and like a game plan, and they're playing BB Tag. Like I'm playing Crackin Atkins BB Tag, but they're playing BB Tag. And like I just remember through watching those players, I was just like, I need to go back to the drawing board. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And like I said, I remember like I said from the beginning, I wanted to play Yang in BB Tag. I did not like that was like my main draw to the game. So I had a couple of side characters and like things that I like was picking up or were interested in as far as like potential team cops and everything. I tried Yang Wald. Super powerful team. Is a team that I had saw, but ended up not working for me. Not a big fan of Wald. Tried getting Mika, which almost worked, but like Mika was just a little bit eccentric at the time of a pick, and I had a hard time picking the character up, so it didn't stick. I tried everything. I had Mitsu Urie, which was actually a team I played in a tournament a few times, and had some decent success with, but Urie was just kind of weird for me. I don't like playing characters in BB Tag that I play in other titles, and Urie is my main in Uni, and I was actually playing Uni at that time in tournaments, so it was just like really too much to handle. I'm like, I'm not playing Urie, dude. And so one day, in fact, to be specific, about a week before Evo, just through mix and matching and like not having truly a main team that I really loved at the time, for some reason, I just picked Mitsuru and I picked Batista, because Batista was a part of my main team that I was already playing. Mitsuru was a side character that I had. It was my first time picking them together. And I was playing, I was figuring stuff out on the fly, and I was just like, yo, this team is crazy. Like I'm just like looking at what like the team is doing, and like kind of I hadn't labbed the team before. I'm just like inserting hypothetical situations and trying to like figure out what the game plan of the team could be. And I'm doing like meaty 5P, high-low, cross combo stuff, and I'm just like, man, this team is like good. And so like I'm playing, and eventually I come to, man, this team feels like me. Like and yeah, eventually came to the conclusion. I was like, I think this is gonna be my new main team, which hurt. It hurt a lot because that meant that I wasn't gonna play Yang anymore. But like I just committed. There's just something about that team that really spoke to me. And so like literally a week before Evo, picked that team up, tried to grind the team out as much as possible so that like I could have the team Evo ready. Ended up going to the Wednesday night fights right before Evo. It worked out okay. There was a lot of things that I had to like get together as far as like combo conversions that I didn't quite have, but the core game plan of the team when it came to the Vortex, Messy Guessies, high-low, trap you forever, everything type of game plan seemed fundamentally sound. Like it seemed like it worked, which was all that I cared about at that time. I'll get combos and everything together later. Then Evo came around, and it worked. I mean, I ended up getting 65th again, a little bit salty because I wanted to place higher, but like consistency is cool, I guess. And consistency with a new main team that I had only been playing for like 7 days at Evo was cool. So that was awesome. There's a couple other games that I played at Evo 2019, being Tekken, which I got out of pools for, which is dope. Mortal Kombat 11, which I got out of pools for, which is dope. Uni, that I didn't get out of pools for, unfortunately. I got bodied by a really good Batista player. And then played in some anime Evo titles, of course, Persona 4 Arena, Ultimax, Kohime, yada yada yada. But after Evo, I ended up taking a break from the FGC. Something I actually kind of skipped out on is like in like that 2018-2019 timeframe, I actually started a local. You may have heard of it, Riverside Riot. Or you may not have heard of it. It's kind of low key. If you live in California, you may have heard of it. But like, started Riverside Riot with a couple of buddies. Basically, some of the buddies that I met through the college group that we had going on. By extension ended up becoming Riverside Riot, where we ran tournaments and locals for a good short bit amount of time, leading up into like Combo Breaker and Evo. Unfortunately, after Evo, I ran into a point in my personal life where I just needed to take a break. There was a lot of things that were going on in my personal life, family things. Unfortunately, in that time, I ended up losing my dad in December 2019 through a long battle with cancer. And yeah, I just needed a break in that time frame of like basically fall and winter 2019 to just take some time to myself and figure some things out. In that time, it's funny, like I ended up tending to play more nostalgic things, which it meant that I was playing like a lot of Call of Duty, because that was something that I actually played as like a teen as well in the Xbox Live days. I played a ton of Call of Duty. I bought the new Call of Duty. Where's it at? It might be right here actually. I don't know where it's at, but like I bought like the new Call of Duty at that time, and I like had a blast like reliving the Xbox Live days. I played a bunch of Smash Ultimate. I played a lot of Mortal Kombat 11. Those are like the main games I was playing at that time. And that was when BB Tag 2.0 came out, mind you. I was not playing that at all. I was just like kind of really detached from the FGC. I was like, it's not the right time. Until around like February-ish when Grand Blue was coming out. So I didn't really have a huge intention on like playing Grand Blue or like playing anything FGC related at the time. I was just kind of like taking things at my own pace. But I ended up liking Grand Blue a lot. Like, I like Grand Blue a lot. Well, I ended up liking Grand Blue. I ended up loving Catalina. Is the best way to put it. I loved that character, man, when she had like first released. And so that kind of brought me, that was basically my gateway drug of getting back into the FGC, because I started like going to Wednesday Night Fights again to compete in Grand Blue, but I was only going for Grand Blue. Eventually, like on the second WNF that I attended, just seeing the BB Tag community again after so long, like I hadn't seen them in like months because I had just been taking a break from FGC as a whole. Eventually I started entering BB Tag again, but like I was just like, it was 2.0. I knew not really much about 2.0 at all. I'd maybe turned it on like 3 or 4 times in like that 7-month period. I was running like random stuff and just like trying to figure out what the hell was going on. It's like this crazy. That 2.0 patch was insane of like what it did with characters and everything. And yeah, I was loving it. I was loving being back in the FGC. I was loving Grand Blue. I was loving all that. And then the pandemic happened and changed everything. Like, pandemic hit, shut down, no more locals. And I'm just like, well, this sucks. So I tried the online thing for a bit. I tried competing in online Grand Blue, and it was just like playing Catalina offline and playing Catalina delay based net code feels awful. And then they nerfed Catalina, and I'm just like, I'm not playing this freaking game anymore. I kind of like played it off and on throughout the past year or so, and I was just like, it already felt kind of like bad playing a hit confirm footsie heavy type of character, delay based, and then she got nerfed, and I'm just like, I'm really not gonna like, I really don't want to play this game anymore. I'll just wait till offline comes back, which I thought was gonna be soon at the time. Boy, was I wrong, because I thought it was gonna be like, I think a lot of people when the pandemic first began, it was like, it's only gonna last like 2 months, right? No, but anyways, I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this time to learn BB Tag and like what's happening, like what have I been missing, what's going on with 2.0. I started playing that a lot more, playing a couple of WNFs, and then it just kind of got, it didn't feel the same. Like it kind of got tired for me. I was just like, oh my god, like I miss offline, I miss the scene, I miss all that. I stopped like grinding online tournaments a bit until I was in the SoulCal BB Tag Discord, and I saw that like I think it was E30 that was asking for commentators. And I was already familiar with commentating through Riverside Riot, the local that we were running, and I commentated. I did a lot. Like I ran the stream for Riverside Riot alongside a couple of friends that definitely helped me out with running the stream because there was just like a lot going on. I was running the stream, I was playing, I was commentating, I was TOing. I was like I was doing multiple jobs at once. There was other people within that scene that were doing multiple jobs at once, possibly more than we were supposed to be doing, but whatever. And so I had some experience commentating multiple things. I've commentated way more than BB Tag. I was commentating like Tekken, Smash, DOA, Street Fighter, and it was just like by extension and proxy of playing those games already. So, yeah, I was like, yo, I'll commentate, whatever. And yeah, there's really not much beyond that because the rest is history. I commentated one, and then I commentated another, and then next thing you know, I'm commentating pretty much every week. I think I've missed like maybe 10 weeks total due to either playing in another tournament or having something personal going on, where I just like I couldn't commentate. But yeah, that ended up being the yearly grind, and that's been awesome because like that was really my gateway of getting like a little bit closer to the community. You know, before this pandemic, I was a little bit to myself, like at events and everything. I just kind of stayed close to my internal community and like Riverside and everything, and the people that I knew, and not really making myself open or like really trying to get to know people outside of that core group. And I think like this past year has really forced me to get to know people outside of my comfort zone, which has been fantastic. I met so many awesome people throughout this past year and everything. And yeah, just continue to commentate, loving BB Tag, playing BB Tag. And I guess that brings us to like nowadays to what I currently do, which is just like, yeah, man, I play everything. I play Strive now. Strive is cool. I'm looking really forward to Multi. I commentate BB Tag, commentate Grand Blue. Hoping to commentate Strive. I actually really need to commentate some Strive as I record this. I haven't commentated any Strive at all. I'm a content creator, YouTube, you know, have some YouTube videos. This is going to be part of that content that I create. I stream sometimes. I want to stream more. I'm going to try to stream more. And yeah, I created a podcast, the Crackin Atkins Podcast, which finally brings us to the what. What is the Crackin Atkins Podcast? What is the cap? And essentially, a podcast where I drink water. Drinking water is important. No, but this is a podcast where I'm going to discuss topics that interest me, mostly related to fighting games and the fighting community. I don't know, who knows? Maybe sometime it will extend to things that are like loosely related to fighting games or competitive gaming as a whole. But mostly I want to keep it centered towards fighting game topics and just things that interest me within that community. My goal is for it to not be structured like this. My goal is actually to have guests. My goal is to have 2. So like I think that 3 is a nice number when it comes to a podcast kind of a playing field, because 1, just having myself just talking to a camera and talking to a mic is only giving one point of view on things. I don't want to feel like I'm preaching at people. Literally the entirety of that Who section that I just did was just like, that's the most self-indulgent and transparent I've ever been. Like I just don't like, you know, doing that. I like having like somebody else there with me to kind of bounce things off of. I think having 2 people there with me is even better. 3 is like the magic number that I like when it comes to listening to podcasts and that I want to have when I'm doing my own. So should be 2 guests per show. Sometimes it might be 1. Maybe there might be another one where it's just me, but I want to avoid that if at all possible. And yeah, that's what's going on as far as what the Crackin Atkins Podcast is. Now, I guess the question would be when? We got to move to the other W. Like, when will the Crackin Atkins Podcast be posted? What I can say, as far as like the day of the week that it will be posted, will always be on a Monday. So this episode should be coming out on August 2nd. Right. Currently it's July 25th. If I'm going to disclose when this is being recorded, but this episode should be coming out on August 2nd, which is going to be episode 0. Episode 1, I mean, at the latest, it'll come out on August 9th. I'm currently kind of debating what I'm going to do for episode 1, because I might roll it out earlier as just like a special thing before the 9th. It may come out on that week of August 2nd. I'm not sure yet. I'm still figuring things out. But with the exception of episode 1, all the episodes should come out on a Monday. And there's a reason for that. I might get to that later. As far as how many, or like more about like when the Crackin Atkins would be posted, currently I can only guarantee that I'll release like one episode a month. Hold up, water is important. All right. Yeah, currently I can guarantee that I'll release like one a month. The goal is twice a month. Not necessarily bi-weekly, but just 2 within a given month. I have a lot that I do. Like I have a full-time job. I commentate. I have my personal life, family stuff, professional stuff that I do. There's just like a lot of time allocation that I have going to other places that isn't this, but I want to put as much time into this as possible and that like I can account for. So realistically, I think that 2 podcasts a month is something that I can do. I just kind of got to figure things out. And I might not have things figured out immediately, but I can say for sure that I will at least have 1 a month for now. But 2 a month is the goal. Just bear with me. Yeah. Brings us to the other W. Where is the Crackin Atkins podcast going to be posted? I kind of like this is crazy because like there's 5 W's and an H. I guess like the what, when, where, and why are a little bit more straightforward and don't require too much context. This has been a trick pilot episode because like most of the majority of this has just been the who. I've just been talking about the who the entire time. But anyways, if we're going to be talking about where, currently guaranteed from what I understand at this moment as I'm recording, this will be always on YouTube and SoundCloud. And I think that's something that I can say that like for the entire run of this, those are the 2 places that I can guarantee that this will appear on is YouTube and SoundCloud. I'm still kind of figuring out RSS feeds and how those work and how to get this on other platforms and stuff. Because I thought, when you're from the outside looking in, you tend to be really ignorant. And like I was very ignorant when I was starting this thing. I'm just like, dude, podcasting is easy, bro. Like you just record some audio and you upload that MP3 to wherever you want it to be at. It is what it is, bada boom, bada bing, and then you get to go, right? And then it turns out that is not the way podcasting works. There's RSS feeds, and you have that feed tied to a broadcaster, being like Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts or something like that, and then it just takes it directly from the feed and posts it on their site. But you got to have like an account linked up in order for it to do that, and like all this stuff. I'm just like, all right, I gotta figure this out. I still haven't figured it out because the best way to figure out how that works is to have an episode recorded. So I'm actually recording this now to figure out how to do that and troubleshoot that over the next week or so. Hopefully by launch day, I'll have that all figured out, and this will be on Spotify because I want this to be on Spotify. There's a specific reason that I want it specifically on Spotify that I'll cover later. And yeah, those are like the main 3 that I'm hoping to have fleshed out. If there is demand or interest for other platforms, or if there's like a reason that I should go to other platforms that I stumble upon, or if I'm just trying to make this as accessible as possible, I'll explore it as I go. I'm willing, especially once I figure out RSS feeds, to extend beyond those core 3. But for now, those are the core 3 that I have my eyes on. As far as where the Crackin Atkins podcast is going to be posted, the CAP, the CAP. Yeah. Moves us to why, the last W. All right, so I guess the question for the why is, why am I doing this? And the answer to that is like, I've actually always wanted to create a podcast. It's never really felt like the right time to create a podcast, if that makes sense. But if there's anything that I've learned is that it's like, if you always try to wait for the perfect time to do things, you will never do them. So it's best to just like get as prepared as you reasonably can and just take the plunge. Just take the plunge, right? And so I've been back and forth on the idea of creating a podcast. I would say at least for like the past 6 months, maybe a little bit even more than that, because I remember having these ideas kind of in like fall 2020. So it's been some time, but I'm just finally deciding to execute it now. The big motivator as to why I'm doing this now is actually related to Twitter. So this also kind of ties back to things I was alluding to earlier. So if you follow me on Twitter, you know anything about my Twitter usage, I used fleets a lot. In fact, when fleets first rolled out, if you're not familiar with fleets, if you don't use Twitter, fleets were basically the Twitter equivalent of Instagram stories or Snapchat stories. I think Facebook has stories as well. Fleets were Twitter's story feature, right? And the reason why I liked fleets so much is because it was a feature that already existed on other social media platforms. I don't use those platforms. I don't use Facebook. I don't use Instagram. I don't use Snapchat. Like I don't use those things, right? I use Twitter. I use Twitter every day. And so like stories coming to Twitter was like, oh, nice. This is a feature on like my main social media platform that I've always liked, but I've never had the chance to use. I'm finna go ham. And so I went super ham. I actually posted a fleet like every day for like the first like couple of months or so. And then like I actually got a little bit tired. I got a little bit burnt out of taking literally a selfie every day. I'm like, I can't do this no more. And so like I stopped posting fleets until like I got like some DMs that was like, yo, where the fleets at? Like, and so I'm just like, okay, I'll bring back fleets, but I'm doing it like under my own terms. Like, the one thing I really liked about fleets that I was doing was like every Monday, I would recommend albums or like artists or songs and everything. And I would write a little brief review or like kind of excerpt about like, what I liked about the album. And then I would curate those albums onto a Spotify playlist, viewable as of now. More on that later. But curate those albums onto a Spotify playlist that people were able to listen to. I've had DMs of people saying like they listened to a specific album or a specific artist and they liked it. Thank me for the recommendation. And I thought that aspect was super cool. Like I really enjoyed that. So my fleet sort of just became mostly centered around that every Monday. Just posting some albums, my thoughts on it. And then like throughout the week, if anything like random happened, like I'm in a McLaren or something like that, maybe I'll post a fleet. But yeah, Twitter announced that fleets are ending. Fleets are ending like in the first week of August, and that sucks because I use those a lot. So one of the main motivators of this podcast was to be kind of like a spiritual successor to fleets, to where like, yeah, just for me to kind of express myself this time on a much more broad spectrum. Because fleets are short, podcasts tend to be a little bit longer. So this is for me to really express myself in the form of a fleet-like nature, but just a little bit more expanded for the viewing audience. And I think that's going to be really cool. And that leads me to how the podcast will operate, which is going to allow me to also explain a little bit more of those missing gaps where I've just been saying, like, I'll explain that later when it comes to like Spotify and everything. So this podcast is going to be pretty straightforward. So I'm hoping for it to be 45 to 90 minute episodes because I want something substantive and meaningful, but not running too long. A lot of my favorite podcasts do tend to go into like the 2 hour, 2.5 hour, 3 hour territory. And like, that's cool. But like, personally, I don't want my episodes to be that long. I think like that 45 hour and a half mark is really how I want things to go for now. Maybe I'll extend beyond that through like trial and error and seeing that like, oh, I actually need way more time, but like, we'll see. Right now I'm thinking 45, 90 minute episodes. As I mentioned earlier, there will be guests. I'm currently aiming for 2 guests per pod. So 3 people talking to a mic for 45 to 90 minutes. And in terms of how the podcast works, so structure for like the first, let's just say we have a 45-minute pod, right? The first 35 minutes are pretty straightforward. We're just going to talk about topics that I have lined up and like whatever. That last like 10 minutes or so, there's going to be 2 recurring segments of the show. One of them is just literally just allowing for people to advertise themselves. Of course, I think that's like courtesy. So like for the 2 guests that I have, if they have anything going on, like share Twitter, YouTube, any events that they have coming up, anything that they're currently working on, any like whatever. It's just basically an opportunity for them to show themselves. So that's one recurring segment of the podcast. Another recurring segment of the show that I'm super excited about is going to be what I'm calling the captions, the Crackin Atkins Podcast. Well, no, it's not the Crackin Atkins Podcast captions. It's just the captions, right? With a capital CAP to represent Crackin Atkins Podcast. Let me explain how this works. So the captions section of the podcast is basically an extension of the fleets. Like I said, specifically the Monday fleets where I was recommending music, where every episode or at the end of every episode of the Crackin Atkins Podcast, the caption section will be a section where me and guests will pick a song, album, or artist to add to the right now it's the Fleets playlist. It's going to be rebranded to the Atkins CAPtions playlist that you'll be able to find on Spotify. As of now, that's not what it's labeled as. Of me recording, that is, but at the time that this is posted, you should be able to search on Spotify Atkins CAPtions and the Spotify playlist will pop up. It's going to be the old Fleet playlist, but now with how it's being updated, it's going to be updated with whatever songs, artists, or albums that I recommend and my guests recommend. So usually when I do the Fleets, it's like 3 or 4 albums every Monday. It's going to be a similar thing with the podcast. So I will recommend 1 or 2 songs or artists or albums. Just depends on how I'm feeling at the time. And my guests, I'm going to ask for them to come equipped with a song, artist, or album to put on the playlist as well. Or, and this is the exciting part, I'm also allowing for anime and manga recommendations. So, Crackin Atkins Podcast has a My Anime list. You can go to myanimelist.net/profile/captions. That's just spelled normally, CAPTIONS. That will pull up the Crackin Atkins Podcast My Anime list. So I know that like maybe I if you know anything about me, I'm pretty heavy into music. I understand that like maybe not everybody is as heavy into music, but maybe they might be into anime and manga. And so this gives guests also an opportunity, if they don't want to share music, they could share an anime or manga if they'd like. So yeah, that caption section will also extend not only for music, but also to anime and manga recommendations. It'll be the same thing. It's going to be really, I mean, similar to how my fleets go, to where I just have like, you know, the album cover or whatever, and I just like kind of give my thoughts and everything, and then we add it to the playlist and we're good to go. But now it's extending the anime now, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, the only rules around it is, of course, like I mean, if you're recommending album, songs, artists, it has to be on Spotify, and that's for the reason that like that's going on a playlist, of course. And then same thing with the My Anime list. If you recommend anime or manga, it has to be something that's within the My Anime list database. And also, it's not R18. None of that stuff. No Dejan stuff, bro. None of that. But yeah, that is the kind of overview. I finished it. I finished the activity, the 5 W's and the H of the Crackin Atkins podcast. In fact, the last thing I want to do, extending off from the captions, is kind of do a caption section of my own. But since the Spotify playlist has a lot of history around it already, I mean, there's just like a back catalog of like hundreds of songs, hours of songs and albums on that playlist already. I want to fill out the caption sections for the My Anime list now, just with like my personal picks to start it off, you know, to kickstart us, because it's gonna build as we grow. You know, the idea behind the Spotify playlist and the My Anime list have a living, growing, evolving playlist of anime and music curated by the guests on the show, which is gonna be super cool. But I feel like for the My Anime list, I should at least kickstart with 3 recommendations of my own. Now, what I'll say about me when it comes to the caption section of the podcast, I'm way more into music than I am into anime and manga. That's more so for like my guests, but also for me to kind of like mooch off of whatever my guest is good for me to watch, because I'm like kind of getting into anime and such. But yeah, for now, I do want to recommend at least 3 titles. I've picked out 3 that I'm going to recommend. So the first caption for the My Anime list is going to be Kuroko's Basketball. We're going Kuroko's, man. Kuroko's is like my favorite, one of my favorite animes, definitely. Sports anime. I don't want to give away too much of the plot when I'm doing this, which might pose a challenge for people that are like doing these anime captions. It's not exposed too much, but basically it's a basketball sports anime that's centered around middle and high schoolers that like have these crazy specialties that they specialize in terms of like a basketball skill. Like some people that are really good at rebounding, some people that are really good at 3-pointers, some people that are really good at passing, or whatever you may have, or whatever it is. And like the way that anime frames itself, presents itself, and like the games that happen that are almost like sequenced as like anime fights, but like not really, they're just playing that. It's just so freaking cool, man. Anime is just so freaking cool. Like and yeah, I love Kuroko's. That was one of the first animes that like I ever watched, and I was like hooked. Like I think I finished like all 3 seasons in like a week or something like that, like, which may not be like the most impressive if you're listening to that, you know, just a week. I can finish that in a day. But like for me, if you know anything about me and my anime watching habits, are really sporadic and really inconsistent. Like it'll take me like 5 months to finish like a season of a show. So for me to finish 3 seasons in like a week, it's actually a lot for me. But yeah, that's gonna be my initial recommendation. If you like sports anime, if you want something like over the top, if you like basketball, and if you want to watch really cool sequences of like something like an anime fight, but it's just literally just a basketball game, that's the one for you. If you listen to my commentary, I've made a couple of Kuroko's references, specifically the Neo of like the art of misdirection. So that's a fun little tidbit there. But yeah, Kuroko's Basketball is going to be the first thing I'll put onto the My Anime list for the captions. Second one, we're going to go with ReZero, Starting Life in Another World. So ReZero is actually kind of cheap for me to put this on the My Anime list, because as of recording this, I have not finished season 2. I'm working on it, but I have not finished season 2 yet. But that's also part of why I'm putting it on the list, is because like when it comes to like a season 1, ReZero was one of those shows that like had me hooked, and I think it's like one of like the greatest season 1s that I've watched of like a show. Granted, that's not very many shows. I haven't watched a lot of anime. I'm not very cultured, but like season 1 ReZero, that was popping. Like it just like jerked every single emotion out of me. It jerked like happiness, jerked sadness, jerked tears, jerked, like it's just like that show is crazy. So like yeah, so this isn't like specifically a recommendation for ReZero season 1, because I'm sure season 2 goes just as crazy. I've been told that it goes just as crazy and it's like mad good, but I just think the premise of that show is great. Obviously, it's like the isekai trope, which is really like prevalent nowadays, of like life in another world or like reincarnation or whatever. That's like just a very common theme of a lot of like today's anime, but ReZero was my introduction to that type of trope, and it's the one that I've enjoyed the most and one that I think is really good. So like if you want something that tugs at your emotional heartstrings and has a pretty likable protagonist, like I like Subaru quite a bit, which is saying something, because usually that's always my issue with animes is the protagonist, but like I like Subaru, super cool. Well, mostly. There's something I don't like about Subaru, but I won't spoil anything. Anyways, yeah, ReZero's dope. Give it a try if you're looking for something that's like kind of like isekai but with a twist, and you're a fan of like reincarnation and stuff like that. And I mean that shows quality waifus as well, and that's something that is definitely worth mentioning when it comes to ReZero. Which brings me to my last recommendation, which is going to be Anohana, the flower we saw that day. So when it comes to Anohana, I mean, the question I gotta ask is like, yo, do you like crying? Like, do you just want to watch something that's just gonna like emotionally rip you apart? Because like that's what that show is, man, honestly. And like it's kind of, to be honest, it's crazy. I just watched this recently. I just watched it this year. It's crazy how well that show has aged. That show is like a masterpiece. Like it's honest. So the best things about it is that it's short. It's like one season. It's like not too many episodes at all, so you can really kind of binge it, you know, at your own pace and finish it pretty quickly. But like it's so good, but it's so sad. Like again, that's definitely a show I don't really want to give too much context of at all as well, but I think it's like definitely worth a watch. But like it's just it's very emotionally captivating. It's very sad. I think character development and just like the kind of depth of characters of that show is like fantastic. Like even for characters that I don't like in that show, there's a lot of depth to every single character of that show, and like their background and their history around the events that transpire in that show that kind of shapes the presentation of that character of the present day of when the anime takes place. That is just like so good. Even like the quote unquote joke character of the show is like one of my favorite characters in the show, because he is like the most like, there's so much going on with him mentally and like stability wise. It's just like, yo, how is he keeping it together? And then like he's not keeping it together. Like it's just that show is so good, man. Anohana is like so freaking good. Yeah, I think out of the 3, that's one of my highest recommendations, just purely because of like the story that it tells in such few episodes. It's like it's easily bingeable, and I think just like the story behind it is not only sad and touching, but also like kind of I don't know if I want to say teaches some good lessons, but it's kind of uplifting in some ways. Like it made me appreciate like life and friends like a lot more after watching that show, not gonna lie, like no cap, like so yeah, Anohana's up there. Again, if you want to be sad, if you like crying, that's the one for you. Give it a shot. Yeah, those are gonna shape out the first 3 captions that we're putting on the My Anime list. They should already be on there now. I put them on there before I started to record this. And with that's been a lot. That was a lot of talking. That's why we need guests, man. I'm not gonna sit up here and just like preach at people for an hour. You know how many sips of water I had to take? It's crazy, man. Talking for this long is nuts. But that is gonna conclude episode 0 of the Crackin Atkins Podcast, the pilot episode. Announcement that I guess I'll put here. It's probably at the time that you're watching this, you may already know this. I'm not really sure how I'm rolling this out yet. I'm still kind of in the process of rolling this out. But episode 1's guests are already solidified. It's going to be Yo Fave Scrub and Lon Lily. So look forward to that. It hasn't been recorded yet as I'm recording this, but it's going to be recorded very soon. And so yeah, by the time that this episode is posted, that episode should already be recorded. So it's going to be right around the corner, like I said. This episode, as you're listening to this, should have been posted on August 2nd. The Yo Fave Scrub Lon Lily episode will be posted no later than August 9th, maybe before August 9th. Just take a look at my social media to know what's going on and when that episode's going to be posted, and keep in touch with all updates that are the Crackin Atkins podcast. It's just Crackin Atkins. Myself, so follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Crackin Atkins. Check me out on YouTube, Spotify as well, actually, or not Spotify. I'm getting that together. But SoundCloud as well. If you search, what's the name of it? The Crackin Atkins Podcast in all caps, because this is the cap in all caps with no cap. The podcast page will come up on SoundCloud. And yeah, maybe there will be more platforms in the future, as I mentioned earlier. But that's all I have for now. So looking forward to the future of this. Looking forward to seeing what this will become. I hope you're looking forward to it as well. Definitely have some exciting guests that I have in mind already. I haven't asked anybody anything besides Yo Fave Scrub and Lon Lily, but I have some exciting guests that I want to get on the show. And it's going to be a ride. So I hope you join me for it. And yeah, thanks for listening to this. If you made it to this so far, I don't have an ending sequence. I have an opening sequence, but bye.